If you are in an unhealthy church culture, if you're in a place where you are being mistreated, spiritually abused, whatever, you need to move on. You need to be out of there. There is a tendency for us to say, well, I can help change the culture. And potentially, if you're the lead pastor, you have a really good chance of being able to change the culture. If you're an executive pastor, you have a lesser chance of being able to shift that culture. But if you're in a youth role, if you're in a children's role, potentially a worship role, frankly, I don't know that I've seen a case where those types of roles have been able to shift a culture from toxic to healthy. And I'm just going to be straight here. I would encourage you, if you're being mistreated, if this is an unhealthy culture, to move on. I learned early on in my ministry, one of the churches I served at as a youth pastor was just unhealthy. The amount of backbiting and politics and the fighting that was going on, the accusations that were being thrown around by my senior pastor, it was unhealthy. And I came to the realization that if I have to take Paxil to be on staff at a church, I probably don't need to be on staff at that church. And so it took a lot of time. It took a lot of, for me to come to that clarity. But if you are in a place where the church is just unhealthy and toxic and is damaging your own spirituality, your own emotional health, your own physical health, if it's hurting your family, it is time to get out of that. Todd, did I overstate that?
No, and we're just honestly, and I don't know who's on here that needs to hear this today, but coming out of COVID, the number of candidates that we're talking to right now that are in this type of a situation where it's either toxic or they feel like it's toxic, or the number of pastors who we've talked to who their wives haven't been to church for the last 6 months because the church has beat up on either you or your spouse or husbands or whatever. It's a big thing. And again, if you stay in a toxic culture for a long time, you're going to end up being there just for the paycheck, which is not a good thing. When you're in an unhealthy, toxic place, definitely, I totally agree with Matt. The culture starts at the top and moves its way down, and culture is a really hard thing to change. And if you're in a staff support role, it's going to be really almost next to impossible for you to change that. So you need to take in your surroundings, take in your environment, and if it's an unhealthy culture, if it's a toxic culture for you or your family, then it's probably time to start thinking about the possibility of moving on. And most of the time, toxicity is not caused by you, right? So there are certain things that you can do as a staff member that can contribute to that. But a lot of the times, if you find yourself in an unhealthy church, it's probably been unhealthy for a long time, and you're not the first person to experience. You probably won't be the last person to experience it. So you can't be the savior of everything. Do what you can while you're there. But if it's starting to get toxic to your soul, Matt often says, how long can when we're interviewing candidates, he'll ask somebody that's in a not great situation, how long can you stay there without taking a hostage? You need to leave before you start taking hostages.
Yeah. And the thing on that, just know this, whatever number you say, however many months you can go before taking a hostage, cut that in half.
Yeah.
As pastors, we tend to be a little bit more rosy about our ability to hang on. And so if somebody tells me 6 months, then I'm saying you need to be out in the next 90 days, right? That kind of thing. We tend to double our ability to hang on and fight the good fight.